AARP Florida. During hurricane season, AARP Florida offers resources for older adults and their loved ones. Floridians can find the tips and tools they need to prepare, respond, and recover. aarpflorida.org/FL Disaster Help. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, the latest news from St. Johns County, from crowd control during Nights of Lights to a loss of federal funding for resilience efforts. We get behind the headlines of Florida's fastest growing coastal county with Jacksonville Today beat reporter Noah Hertz. Then, national performers bring their Broadway skills to bear for students in a local production of The Lion King Jr. And you're invited to laugh out loud for a 9th year with the LOL Film Festival. We talk to the producer, writer, editor, actress, and festival director behind the annual magic. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Under a growing hunger crisis, Gaza health officials say more than 100 Palestinians were killed as they attempted to reach life-saving supplies yesterday. The Israeli defense denies it killed that many people and maintains that forces fired warning shots at crowds. The encounter may have been the single deadliest for aid workers on the ground and the people they're trying to help. NPR's Anas Baba spoke to Dr. Noor Sharaf, an American doctor working at Gaza's Shifa Hospital.
I saw you today once I entered the hospital and the ER, and I saw you freeze.
I think I was in shock. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Lots of young children have come in with gunshot wounds to the head and to the abdomen, chest. People are coming in with severe malnutrition.
Dr. Sharaf speaking with NPR's Anas Baba in Gaza. Texas state lawmakers returned to Austin today for the start of a legislative special session. Houston Public Media's Andrew Schneider reports a rare mid-decade round of congressional redistricting is set to dominate the agenda.
Governor Greg Abbott put redistricting on the special session call following a letter from the U.S. Justice Department naming 4 Democratic districts as, quote, unconstitutional racial gerrymanders. Houston Democratic Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher says it's Abbott and President Donald Trump who want to push racial gerrymanders through.
I am obviously deeply concerned, and everyone in Texas should be concerned, and everyone across the country should be concerned about what this represents, which is an absolute partisan power grab.
Trump has told Texas Republican members of Congress he wants to pick up 5 seats in the mid-decade round of redistricting. For NPR News, I'm Andrew Schneider in Houston.
Japan's ruling coalition lost its majority in the upper house of parliament in elections yesterday. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports it's the first time since 1955 that the ruling party in Japan has become the minority in both houses of parliament.
The ruling Liberal Democratic Party and coalition partner the Komeito Party failed to get the 50 seats they needed to retain the upper house majority. 2/3 of the contested seats were taken by opposition parties, with center-right and right-wing parties making the most dramatic gains. They include the Sansei Party, which advocates a Japanese-first nationalist agenda. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba says he has a responsibility to stay on and deal with pressing problems such as Japan's aging population, rising cost of living, and tariff negotiations with the U.S. But having lost 2 parliamentary elections in a row, pressure within the party for Ishiba to step down is likely to grow. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Stephen Ponson. It is now 9:04. Two Jacksonville sites are some of Florida's most threatened historic places, according to the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation's 2025 11 to Save list. That list reflects historic places that matter to communities. The 167-year-old Mayport Lighthouse inside Naval Station Mayport is on that list. Mayport Lighthouse Association Vice President Elizabeth Boggs says being on the list is very good news as they get ready to kick off a feasibility study into moving the lighthouse to Mayport Village.
Once we have the report findings and we have evidence that it is feasible to move the lighthouse and there's a safe location there on the Mayport Village waterfront where the lighthouse can be moved, then we will go back to all of our stakeholder parties with that information once we have, kind of the hard facts from the study, and then proceed with next steps from there.
Jacksonville's Anita Bungalow Court is another local site on the list. That site is a community of century-old bungalows in Mixontown that were once part of a larger black working-class community. Two other Northeast Florida sites are on the list: Magic Beach Motel in Vilano Beach in St. Johns County and the Mary Mossman House and Hall in Melrose in Putnam County. A heat advisory is in place for all of Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia this afternoon from around 12 until 6, but it could end early due to some scattered showers that are expected to move from west to east later on this afternoon. Highs will reach the mid to upper 90s, and it's going to feel as if it's 110.
Support for NPR comes from the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org. And Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a local lawmaker's promise to fund a seawall in coastal St. Johns County falls victim to the new administration's changing priorities. We talk about what's next for the frequently flooded neighborhood, as well as the future of funding for the county's first responders. Later in the program, we sit down with Monique Madrid, the creator behind the annual LOL Film Festival, about what keeps the laughs and the love coming. But first, we are pleased to welcome Noah Hertz. He is the dedicated St. Johns County beat reporter for Jacksonville Today. Noah, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Ann. Good morning.
It's good to have you. And of course, we've had you on the program several times, but I don't think we've discussed necessarily just the scope of your work and why Jacksonville Today decided to hire a reporter just to focus exclusively on St. Johns County.
I think it's been a little bit. Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing because, I was just talking to somebody in St. John's a few days ago about how they were saying they really like the newsletter. They really like that Jacksonville Today does do so much kind of focusing on St. Johns County specifically. But they were saying, I wonder how people in Jacksonville feel about it. And I was like, no, people in Jacksonville seem to know what's going on in St. John's too, in the same way that folks in St. John's like to know what's going on in Jax, because, we all live so close to each other. Everybody drives to and from somewhere on the weekends. So it's been a really neat opportunity for us to kind of expand our scope in terms of what we're really paying attention to in this area.
And so much of what's at issue in St. Johns County has a lot of overlap, and the issues that we're going to be discussing today certainly do. We are also taking calls and questions. If you have questions for Noah Hertz about what's happening in St. Johns County, if you have stories to pitch to Noah, we are taking your calls and comments and questions. You can reach us at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. So I do want to start with something that has, resonance here, certainly, because the millage rate is all important in all kinds of counties in Florida right now. Everybody's considering whether to maintain or roll back the property tax rate. And that's something that St. Johns County is going to be talking about this week. But public safety is really at the core of what you've been covering recently as it relates to millage. So what's going on with the firefighters in St. Johns County right now?
Yeah, I will say this kind of kicked off initially from some reporting that the folks at News4Jax did about how the St. Johns County Fire Union is currently, they're in negotiations back and forth with the county about their contract that'll be part of this budget. And one of the things that they were negotiating was lowering the number of hours that individual firefighters are working in St. John's. So right now, the state has put out a recommendation that firefighters only work 42 hours, weekly, whereas in St. John's, I believe it's more than 50 right now that each firefighter works. So the union was going back and forth with the county, or is still going back and forth with the county. And so I reached out to them after News4Jax was reporting because I wanted to talk a little bit about the budgetary aspect of that. And it's like you said, everybody's talking right now about, are we going to raise property taxes? Are we going to lower property taxes? And a lot of elected officials are saying, we would like to roll back property taxes. We would like to make it so that you as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, as a property owner, do not have to pay any more in property taxes. But in this case, the fire union in St. John's is saying that, with St. John's plans to build, 4 new fire stations in the next 5-6 years, the union president is warning that if they do go to a rolled back millage rate, if they do truly not put as much money as the union is hoping they do into the fire budget, they might not be able to pay for staffing for all the people who are going to be a part of these new fire stations. So I had a conversation on Friday or last week with the county administrator, and one thing she told me is that when they're recommending the budget to the county tomorrow to set the tentative millage rate, that they are not going to recommend a rollback on the fire budget, that they're going to recommend that they increase that funding.
I thought it was interesting that the county administrator, Joy Andrews, that you spoke to, seemed to be very strong on that. She basically told you, we will have to recommend a millage increase for the fire district. And that doesn't even include the work week changes that you're saying, in terms of having firefighters work fewer hours. I presume if you have firefighters working fewer hours, that means you ultimately have to have some more firefighters that you hire. And she basically said that, we're going to have a 0.87 millage increase. So even before it goes before the county commission, the body that she advises, she's sort of saying this is what's going to have to happen.
Yeah. And it'll still be a really interesting conversation when it goes to the county commission because, you've got people on the county commission who have already kind of signaled. County Chair Krista Joseph specifically has already said that she is very eager to at least try to get the budget to a rolled back rate. And the immediate question that people ask after that is, what are we going to cut then? And it's a lot harder then to point at services or things that the county provides and say, in order to get the budget back to this level, this is what we are going to stop funding, or this is what we are going to fund less. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting that Joy really drew a line in the sand there and said, we need to fund the fire district. Now, whether the county commission agrees with her, remains to be seen, but that's where the county administrator's head is at.
She indicated as well, Joy Andrews, that, they did do a rollback in 2021. It was the most recent time, and that the county's still kind of paying for that in a way, is not able to perhaps fund things to the level that they'd like because that has set them back.
Yeah, this was something that, I hadn't even really thought about until the two of us were talking, but since the property tax rate is set relative to the previous year, when you set it at a lower level one year, in subsequent years, getting it back up to, say, a level that it would have been at had you not lowered property taxes requires an increase. So, and nobody wants to increase taxes. It's pretty much across the board in the state of Florida. Nobody wants to be the politician that raises taxes, no matter how necessary you might argue it is. And so, yeah, that was something she told me, is that it's a frequent topic of conversation in St. John's about infrastructure issues and things like that. They tried to institute either a half cent or a cent sales tax on road improvements just in the last couple of years relatively, and that did not pass. And so there are very frequently conversations about, the infrastructure really needs work in St. Johns County. How are we going to pay for those infrastructure improvements?
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Noah Hertz. He's the St. Johns County beat reporter for Jacksonville Today, and you're welcome to join our conversation. We're talking all things St. Johns County. We can be reached at 904-549-2937, or we can be emailed, if you'll have it that way, at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And you can reach out on Instagram, Facebook, or X at FCC On Air. Noah, I want to ask you, because one of the things that firefighters have noted is an increased workload. The county is, as we said, the fastest growing county in Florida, sometimes maybe the fastest coastal county. I know Polk is sometimes catching
Yeah.
up close, but in terms of like a larger county, St. Johns County is certainly the fastest growing. And there's also been sort of a change in the kinds of fires that firefighters are responding to, which I thought was really interesting. You talked about Nocatee, for instance, which is
Yeah.
a kind of planned community where people are driving a lot of electric vehicles, whether it's little golf carts or bicycles, and that's created a fire hazard.
Yeah, it was really fascinating hearing that from the folks at the fire union that they're responding to more battery fires these days. Not more so than anything else, and not maybe to an insane degree, but it is certainly more than they have ever responded to because there are just more people with big vehicles that have big batteries in them. So I know we've definitely heard stories of, there will be a house fire and then it will end up being a golf cart that had been plugged in for too long and overcharged or something like that, and then the fire department will issue a reminder that you not overcharge these things or not leave them unplugged when you're not watching them. But yeah, I thought that was fascinating. It was just something I hadn't thought about. Another thing they mentioned to me is that when there are areas that have been clear cut of trees and there are fewer trees for lightning to strike, they respond to more lightning strike responses. And that was another one just I had never considered that is like a really tangible difference compared to how an area might have been before a big development moved in or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
a
that.
fascinating impact of growth that I don't think
Yeah.
I would have thought of either. And I guess when it comes to millage rates and taxes, I mean, obviously the income that's coming into the county is growing.
Yeah.
It's a fast growing county. Why is it that those additional funds don't suffice to meet the needs of, say, first responders and how they're having to respond to this growth? It just
Yeah.
isn't sufficient, they say.
That's a $1 million question that I don't think I can fully answer, but I know I can definitely say that in part it's because the growth has been so rapid. It would be one thing if it had been more of a steady growth over time, but we're talking in the last 5-10 years, truly just explosive growth in St. John's. And so because of that, when 10 years ago the county was not anticipating that they were going to grow at this rapid of a rate, there was no way of knowing that, well, if we're a little behind on this road improvement, nothing too crazy is going to happen, and then your population explodes and suddenly the effects of that are really amplified.
We've got a call from Mark in St. Augustine. Good morning, Mark. Go ahead.
Good morning. I love St. Augustine. I moved here about 5 years ago from Jacksonville. I'm a big booster of St. Augustine. And to that end, I would like to ask everybody in Jacksonville and pretty much everywhere to just stay out of St. Augustine and let us be. However, I want to know who, I keep my ear to local politics, and I don't know of any groundswell about cutting the millage rate. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny. I have, of course, a whole bunch of Yankee friends from New Jersey, and they can't believe they're paying tens of thousands of dollars property taxes every year compared to, I think my girlfriend paid $1,100 on her house. So, especially when it concerns public safety, who is, is this just politicians wanting to look good saying, hey, we gave you guys a couple of bucks back every year? I don't see the groundswell for it.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, it's interesting, Noah, there has been obviously talk, at least here in Jacksonville, of the need to offset things like rising insurance rates, rising home prices, and giving, taxpayers a break. But it doesn't necessarily amount to much when you're talking about rolling back millage. You're talking, tens of cents.
And I can say, to Mark's point, the city of St. Augustine is not a part of any of these discussions. The city of St. Augustine for the last decade has set the same tax rate every year, which amounts to a small increase in property tax. Since property values increase when they set the same rate, that means that you pay slightly more on your property taxes. That push to reduce property taxes is really coming from the county level. Like I said, Chair Krista Joseph of the County Commission has said multiple times during meetings that she wants to see something like the federal government's Department of Government Efficiency. She has said repeatedly that she wants to see at least an option for a rollback. And same with the chair of the local Republican Party, Denver Cook, has come up a couple times during public meetings in the public comment period and said, look, if you guys do not support a rollback, we are going to make an effort to get every single one of you who voted against to roll back out of office.
Wow. All right. Well, I do want to shift gears and talk about another issue that you've been reporting on, and this has to do with resilience planning in North Beach. And North Beach is a community that's just kind of north of Vilano Beach, which is the next island up from St. Augustine. And there's a new community alliance that has formed in large part around concerns about flooding impacts.
Yeah, and I should say they are new relatively. They've been around for a few years, but this is, I mean, if you know anything about the North Beach community neighborhood area, you know that it floods like crazy because we're talking about, absolute barrier along A1A to the Atlantic Ocean right there. So when a storm goes through, this is low-lying, sea level or below areas that get flooded really badly.
And is this sort of an area that's primarily west of A1A, kind of as it reaches the intercoastal? It's almost like a little bowl.
Yep, yeah. There are some houses on the east side of A1A too, but we're talking primarily west, where when the water goes into this bowl and then it sits there. This was an interesting story. I spent months following this just because every single time I thought I had enough on it or I had a good idea of what was going on, something would shift or the legislature would discuss something, and I was like, all right, let me hold off until they finish talking about this. But the long and short of it is that a year ago now, so last summer, Representative John Rutherford, who represents parts of Jacksonville and St. Johns County in D.C. in the House of Representatives, came and went on a little boat tour with a few other local elected officials and toured parts of Vilano and North Beach so that he could see and other elected officials could see the extent of flooding. And I mean, this was last summer, so there wasn't even any horrific storm to pin things to. This was still the after effects of storms from a few years prior. And so at that time, during a press conference, he had said, look, I support neighbors' requests for a seawall. We're going to look into funding from FEMA, specifically their Building Resiliency in Communities program, and we're going to try to get this done. So fast forward a year, and discussions about FEMA are a little tricky right now because the Trump administration has kind of gone back and forth on whether they really want to 100% just gut FEMA and give all that money to the states. And the specific program that Rutherford said that he wanted to fund a seawall through, the BRIC program they call it, has been completely eliminated by the federal government. Kristi Noem and that team there in D.C. have said that it was a wasteful program and it was politicized and it was really focused on giving money before a disaster rather than the way FEMA typically operates, which is funding in the events after a disaster.
And that fund, as you say, the BRIC funding, the Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, that was really kind of a legacy of the Biden administration and the infrastructure plan that he put in place, a lot of which has been or is being rolled back. But at the time, as you say, Congressman Rutherford said, that's what this money should be there for. The BRIC money is there to help communities like this one build, programs. He said, I much prefer building resiliency than after the fact mitigation. And so these walls are hugely expensive.
Yeah, very, very expensive.
I mean, they were saying that, there possibly is a need to bulkhead kind of the whole area of the intercoastal, but even a mile or a mile and a half, you say, could cost well over $100 million.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that I had a conversation with some of the folks at the county in St. John's, and they even said that I believe the word they used was paralyzed until they know what's going on with money from the state and the federal government, because this is the kind of project that kind of price tag, the county government on its own, there is no way they can fund that. They told me that in the event that the feds aren't able to support this, one possible option is to institute a extremely area specific local tax on these people to help them fund it. But that's something that the community would also have to support. And the county folks pointed out to me too, that's something that the entire community might not support, because maybe your house is never flooded. So why the heck should I increase my property taxes to help fund this seawall? So it's all very much in limbo at the moment, which I know is very scary for folks in a neighborhood where one bad hurricane is all it takes and that entire neighborhood is flooded.
Yeah, a lot of damage has been done there too. We've got a call from Brad at the beach. Good morning, Brad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about the fire department services. They begin to service the construction community at the time the neighborhoods get built. And so they're having to be ready for the houses in the neighborhoods almost before. And then I believe there's a delay in taxing from when it goes from the raw land tax to the person's in their home tax, and they're getting assessed at the full value. So all the services have to be there ahead of that, or at least in a position to respond to it. That's kind of why they need the funding ahead, even with the rapid growth.
That makes sense, Brad. And I mean, of course, there is not just the question of services, but insurance rates go hand in
Yeah.
hand with the availability of, for a community's fire response. That is something that's calculated into everybody's insurance rates.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's something that County Administrator Joy Andrews told me too, is that the county is really going after a lower insurance rate for the entire county and for folks specifically in areas that might not have the closest fire station to them. So it's a case not only of trying to keep up with that growth, but also to then make service even better than it has already been too.
When we talk about resilience, I mean, we were talking about the FEMA funding and the fact that that BRIC program has been essentially eliminated, but the state has also been looking at providing some funding. Where does that stand? Because you've also been talking to some state lawmakers about the need that exists in coastal communities like this one in St. John's.
And that's another thing that is kind of just a big question mark at the moment. I had a conversation ahead of the end of the legislative session with Representative Sam Greco, who represents in the State House parts of this area too, and he told me that him and Senator Tom Leek were going after a pretty chunky appropriation from the state's budget in order to get some money over to this area. But he even said at the time that, well, given so much time was spent in the legislature this last legislative session about property taxes and about getting the budget down, that he even said then that this might not end up being a priority for discussion, and it did not end up in the budget. So lawmakers have indicated that they're going to try again this next year, but that's another case of when you don't get it this year, you have to wait another calendar year until the legislature picks back up in session next year.
And you noted these projects take an incredibly long time to complete.
Yes.
And by way of example, you discussed the section of A1A, state of Highway A1A through that area that was destroyed or damaged by Matthew in 2016. It was basically, overwash that took out the road on a section of that highway. And that's a project that was funded by the local government, but also with matches from state and FEMA dollars. And it was a priority because that's a major road and an essential link to communities.
Yeah.
And even that took 7 years.
And I think that's part of why Representative Rutherford made that point a year or so ago now, that it's easier. It's painful no matter which way you cut it. It's painful and it's expensive and it takes time. But if the opportunity is there to build that resiliency ahead of a disaster, you've at least got a leg up after the disaster happens. And that is primarily the way FEMA has always acted of, okay, a disaster has happened. Now we send in FEMA and we send in the state dollars and the federal dollars. And that's why this BRIC program was kind of definitely a reshaping and a rethinking of how FEMA could operate. And now that it's gone, we're kind of back to, I can't even say the status quo though, since the FEMA could end up getting eliminated, and that would completely change the status quo.
And so what is Congressman Rutherford saying now that that program that he had initially said he would support getting funds from has been eliminated?
I was never able to get a comment from Representative Rutherford about that specifically, unfortunately. His office sent me along a letter that he had sent to the Department of Emergency Management here in Florida back in, I believe, March, about how he, still supported resiliency efforts and wanted to see all of the flooding support brought to these communities. But in terms of specifically FEMA and this program and all these things, I did not get a comment from Rutherford's office.
Okay. We're talking to Noah Hertz about St. Johns County issues, and you're welcome to join our conversation at 904-549-2937. I want to move on to a topic that people like Mark in St. Augustine, who doesn't want anybody from Jacksonville to come on down, will well relate to, and that's the issue of Nights of Lights, because there has been ongoing discussion after what a lot of people described as a disastrous Nights of Lights season in many ways this last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, remind us what that looked like for people who lived there and people who were visiting.
If you can imagine your car being on the road but not moving for a very long period of time, if you can close your eyes and picture that, that's what Nights of Lights was like this past year. the words gridlock have been used very frequently to describe it. And couple that traffic with the mass amount of pedestrians who were downtown too. And it was just a recipe for disaster. The city was just not expecting that many people to be downtown, as many people as there were. And so we've had ongoing discussions, I think, basically every time the St. Augustine City Commission has met since Christmas time. They have brought up Nights of Lights in some way, shape, or form. The latest things they're discussing, and I will say that at the moment, they haven't made a ton of really hard decisions about things. It's been a lot of proposing ordinances and talking about things that might change. One thing that they have fully decided on at this point is they kind of beta tested some potential changes on their July 4th holiday,
Right.
including some traffic barricades that could keep cars from getting near where pedestrians are going to be, and rolling out more public restrooms, so portable public restrooms downtown,
Which is-
because anyone who spends time in downtown St. Augustine knows that there are not a ton of public restrooms. So
Right. And they had a real problem this past year with people just
absolutely.
kind of urinating in public.
Yes, they did. And same
Nobody's idea of a good time.
nobody's idea of a good time. And similar, they didn't even have trash cans downtown. And so that was just something that they didn't have enough people to get down there and empty the trash cans because they weren't expecting them to fill up that fast. So most recently, they've floated some more things like hiking the price of the parking garage downtown while the city's free shuttle is running in an effort to drive more people towards the the satellite parking lots that are outside the downtown proper, and then encourage people to ride the shuttle. Same with really hiking the cost that people pay if they park illegally and then get a ticket downtown, just because I know there was a situation this past year where people were parking on the green in front of the fort. And that's
Oh
not
my.
somewhere where people are supposed to park, but one person did it, and then a couple more people said, well, surely we can park there. And then now you've got a whole parking lot in front of the Castillo de San Marcos, which is this historic, nationally recognized site that you really should not have cars that close to.
Yeah. And, one thing that I thought was really interesting is, I mean, there's the experience that visitors have, and
Mhm.
then there's the experience that residents have. And
Yeah.
one problem that a lot of people complained about was the fact that, this is a service industry town, and the people who work those jobs, who are bringing you your food at your restaurant or waiting on you at the store that you're shopping at, they literally couldn't find a place to park
Yeah.
themselves, so they couldn't get to their jobs.
Yeah, so now we're talking about specific parking lots for people who work downtown and this kind of thing, and specific roads for local traffic or that kind of thing. All in service of, I mean, you can imagine how much that's a cascading effect. If someone can't get to their job, then it slows down service at that place. And then if it slows down service, you've got longer lines and more people packed in places. And it's just a domino effect of, if people aren't able to get parking, and Lord knows there is often not enough parking in parts of downtown for the people who want to park there, then it just causes
Yeah, on a good day.
on a good day, exactly. And parts of Nights of Lights where it just so packed, so much more packed than St. Augustine normally is.
I want to just briefly at least get to a subject that you also covered this last week. The mayor of St. Augustine,
Mhm.
who recently took a trip to Israel in June and came back and introduced a resolution for the city commission. Tell us a little bit about what Nancy Sykes-Klein brought back to the commission and kind of what her goal is.
Yeah, last Monday, the city commission, all four of the city commissioners who were present at that meeting, passed a resolution supporting the state of Florida's definition of anti-Semitism. So this is a definition that it's often referred to as the International Holocaust Remembrance Association. I believe that's what the A stands
Alliance.
for. Alliance, there it is. Their definition of anti-Semitism, which is they're a group that has pitched this definition, and that definition has been codified by the state of Florida as theirs, that just outlines what anti-Semitism is, what it looks like, some examples. It has been criticized by groups like the ACLU and Amnesty International, though, for its provisions that talk about Israel, specifically about what critiques of the state of Israel are considered anti-Semitic and which ones are not. Something Nancy said to me when St. Augustine Mayor Nancy Sykes-Klein said to me when the two of us were talking is that they were hoping to show people that that's not what their idea was, because there is a note in the resolution they passed that says that, you can criticize Israel the way you would criticize any other state. But when you start to criticize Israel and say that maybe individual Jews have a dual a dual loyalty to the state of Israel and this kind of thing. Now, there is also a provision in there that says that people are not allowed to compare Israel to the Nazi regime and that kind of thing. So there have definitely been criticisms of that definition of anti-Semitism, but that's part of what Nancy brought back with her from her Israel trip.
And she said she's got a connection. I don't believe she's Jewish, but she has a connection through her stepfather, who was a childhood survivor of the Holocaust. So she said this was very close to her heart. And she didn't necessarily see, kind of Israel's sort of polarizing response to the October 7th attack as necessarily a problem for introducing this resolution.
No, this is something, I mean, even beyond this resolution, it's very much symbolic. It doesn't really change cities' rules. It is just an affirmation of what the state has already said is the law they follow. But she said that this is all part of kind of a greater thing she wants to show of strengthening her relationship, or St. Augustine's relationship, with the state of Israel. She told me that she would even consider making St. Augustine a sister city with a city in Israel. And like you said, that is something I asked her. Like, support for Israel can be polarizing. Like the United Nations, several United Nations bodies have indicated that they are concerned about the potential for genocide being committed in Gaza over this last couple of years of this war in Gaza. And Nancy said that was something, she's interested in hearing other perspectives on.
All right. We did get an email from Ricardo. He says, unfortunately, since the St. Augustine record has all but disappeared, we're lacking local news coverage. Keep an eye on too much development, too much loss of green space, too many petty arguments at the county commission. But he adds, Noah's coverage is great for our county. Thank you.
Oh, that's really sweet. And I will pay attention to the massive amounts of development. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Top of mind for sure.
Well, Noah, it's great to catch up a little bit about St. Johns County news with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me this morning.
And you can reach Noah Hertz if you have pitches. I believe it's N Hertz
It's Noah, Noah, at jaxtoday.org.
Noah at jaxtoday.org. All right. Send in those pitches. Up next, national performers bring their Broadway skills to bear in a local production of The Lion King Jr. Welcome back. Local talent is getting a boost from Broadway in an upcoming performance of The Lion King Jr. Here to tell us about it is the program's director and several performers. First of all, Ulysses Owens Jr., artistic director at the arts nonprofit Don't Miss a Beat. Welcome back, Ulysses.
Glad to be here always.
We're also joined by Greenwood School senior Jay Ricca, who plays Simba.
Hi.
Hey, Jay. Nice to have you. Isaiah Mack, sophomore at Douglas Anderson, and who plays Scar in the performance.
Hello.
Hey, Isaiah. And Paxson senior McKinley Taylor, lead dancer who plays a lioness. Welcome, McKinley.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start actually with you, Ulysses. You were recently selected one of the 30 artists named to Jacksonville's Walk of Fame. Congrats.
Thank you, man. I'm so honored. I have such a love affair with the city of Jacksonville. It launched me, and it still holds me, my son, my family, and this organization. So I'm very honored.
And this organization is the brainchild of your family. You, of course, came to music as a 2-year-old, as a drummer. You went to Douglas Anderson.
Yes.
You went to Juilliard. You've won now Grammys. But Don't Miss a Beat is really kind of the heart and soul of your your work? I mean, bringing along young people who may not have other opportunities to get involved in the arts.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, our mission at Don't Miss a Beat is to enlighten and then engage youth through musical theater and also community activities. And so, we started 18 years ago with really just seeking to be a bridge to a better life for youth. Now, within the last 7, 8 years, we've become a full production company, particularly focusing on musical theater, Broadway junior productions. Yes, it's my life's work, though I tour, travel, record, and all of that. It means so much to me to have these incredible youth here because somebody did it for me.
Yeah, and so one of the artists that is part of this production is somebody that I'm guessing you know from your work on Broadway because you've been working on a Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong musical. You're in the band,
Yes.
and Brett Sturgis is a performer.
Yeah, and so I was fortunate to make my Broadway debut October. Technically, we were in previews in November in the Louis Armstrong show. It was called by Branford Marsalis and David Lai, a wonderful contractor in Broadway. And so I was in that show playing drums until February. And then, I met Philip Boykin, who's a Grammy Award and Tony Award nominee. He's a great friend of mine, and he has a passion for youth because he also was a product of a program similar to Don't Miss a Beat, but in his hometown of Greenville, South Carolina.
And so he agreed to come down and participate.
So, Philip actually came down last year, and he just did a one-day workshop.
Okay.
This year, or even then, I said, hey, I want you on one of my shows. So literally, he's in Hadestown right now on Broadway. He took 2 days off from Broadway. He literally is flying in Wednesday morning to be with our kids and be on stage with them because he understands that impact of transferring really his artistry and his brilliance to our children on stage.
So McKinley, how is it for you as a performer? First of all, just kind of in this group and putting on this program, but also having this enormous talent coming down and sort of devoting their time and their hours to teaching you.
Yes, I am actually really excited to see that. When you're in the audience and you're seeing all these Broadway shows and you're seeing the people that are performing, you're like, oh my gosh. But having them actually come to be in the show, we can see like the background and they're just human, just like us. And we're just performing with them and seeing how they work and getting tips from them for like our future.
And you are a senior now.
Yes.
Is your plan to move into or to kind of stay in the field of musical theater?
Yes, it is actually. So being in this program is actually helping me and growing me so I'm able to be ready for what they have in the future.
Yeah. Isaiah, how did you get involved in Don't Miss a Beat?
I got involved through Mr. Owens.
Uh-huh.
So I went through one of his concerts at JU, and then he told me and my mom about Don't Miss a Beat.
What was your involvement in music or theater up to that point? Because you're a sophomore now at DA, right? At Douglas Anderson?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So my involvement, I was more into like the band side of things. And then Don't Miss a Beat helped me bring out like my singing voice and my acting.
And so did the group help you prepare to audition for DA? Is that something that they kind of helped you prepare to become a
Yes.
part of that program?
Yeah.
And if so, how? What did they do?
So we have one of our pianists, Mr. Royce. So we have a bunch of the artists and special artists and the staff there that they'll help us prepare for our auditions. So they helped me prepare for my audition for La Villa, and they also helped with DA.
Okay, so you went to La Villa as well. And Jay, you play Simba, which is a name that we all kind of know from that show. First of all, how did you get the role, and what are you enjoying about this summer's production?
What I'm enjoying about this summer's production is just all the people who have been involved with it. It's definitely every day at that camp, it just feels entirely new with all this happiness and passion with everybody because everybody just loves doing what they want to do. And the funny thing is, I didn't want to be Simba at first. I wanted to be.
Why not?
I didn't know. I wanted to try the villain arc, so I tried being Scar. And after doing a little read through with the girl who plays Nala, it really opened the door of what Simba could be and what I could bring to the table with Simba. And so thankfully, I was given the part of Simba, and because of that, I've just got to understand like all like the mental side of who he is and what he goes through to become by the end of the show almost a symbol of his father.
And how does having the involvement of Broadway performers with the group kind of what does that offer to you?
It just shows me that if I continue to work very, very hard, what I might become in the future, if I continue to always put like my best foot forward and always never like give up. If something gets hard, always continue it. I can possibly be just as good as these guest artists that they bring in.
Yeah. So Ulysses, remind us, I mean, who is kind of the target audience here in terms of your your program? Who are the kids that you're reaching out to?
So our program ages are offering are from 5 all the way up to 17. When I say 5, meaning the kid who's running around your house, acting like Jay, reciting lines to movies. They can't sit still because they're moving and dancing. They're going into characters over their pizza, right? That we want that baby because that baby will be one of these when they get older. For the middle-aged kids, we're looking at kids who are really creative. And like I always say, one of the beautiful things about being an artist is that you find your tribe. So I always say that kid that's a little quirky, that's super artistic, musical, into movement, into acting. And then for the teens, same thing. They have a focus. Like I always tell people, music saved my life. It was the thing that gave me direction and it gave me a sense of purpose. And so that's what we're looking for. So if your child has any of those attributes, call 1-800 Don't Miss a Beat. But also just know that to be an artist or to become an artist doesn't mean you have to commit to it for the rest of your life. One of the things I tell people is that if you're an artist, it can contribute to a greater life in whatever you choose. So even if your child desires to be a lawyer or a doctor or, even what you're doing, Ann, right? Being able to have the opportunity to dance, also be an actor, learn how to present yourself, learning how to get into character, that translates into whatever. So if your child is interested in the arts, call us. And there's no program like Don't Miss a Beat simply because we bring Broadway to Jax. It isn't just that we do musical theater, but we have Broadway artists that come here, work with the students, and we are year-round. We have a wonderful summer camp and after-school program. So I'm a bit biased, but meaning I designed the program around the deficiencies that existed in other local programs to say, hey, what are the things that we want? And the things that was missing was great programs exist here. However, that Broadway element, and it's also a consistent tie that we have and we will continue to have for the rest of our programs' existence.
I'm curious, McKinley, like what you see this helping you with. I mean, Ulysses sort of alluded to it, but in terms of just life skills, how you present yourself, how you interact with other people beyond the stage, how does being involved in musical theater help you develop?
Okay, so musical theater is where you're just like out there. So when I actually came into this program, I was quiet. When I auditioned, I was singing like shyly behind my mom. And I think as I was in the program, I got to grow my voice. I got to be able to step out of my comfort zone, which is a big thing for musical theater. You want to step out into your comfort zone and you just want to go out there. Don't think, just go. So I think being in this program really helped me to just move. I'm always like staying to myself or staying behind somebody or hiding. But I think I was able to just go and explore and flourish.
And something that stays with you when you're off stage as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually being able to like speak to you is like how they help me.
Yeah, a huge accomplishment, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Isaiah, you are the villain in this. What is fun about playing a villain, and kind of how do you develop that? You seem like such a nice kid.
Oh, okay. So, like to get into character, I'll like make myself mad
Uh-huh.
or like do something to make me mad or like but also like about playing the villain, I get all like the cool lines.
You get all the good lines, yeah.
I was like, because I'm the antagonist, so I like that I get to play off of the actor I'm working with. So it's a communication thing.
Yeah. And do you still kind of relate to the musical side of it more than the theatrical side, or have you also branched out into that being
I
part of?
branched into the theatrical side.
Yeah, yeah. Just briefly, Jay, what do you think people who come see this performance will take away from it?
First off, I think when people come see the show, they're gonna be blown away with how just amazing these young adults are. How all of us, just because how Mr. Ulysses said, like we have like 5-year-olds doing this and they're dancing like all these like amazing choreography. So I think people are just gonna be blown away by just the fact that a young child is doing this, and it's just for me. With all the shows I've seen, it's the singing that gets me. Like me and my mom, we love harmonies, and when they do all these group numbers and that harmony hits, it's just you can't even tell that these are children. You just think these are adults. Like everybody is just so talented.
One thing that's really cool about this program and this production is it's actually going to be at the Ritz Theatre and
Yes.
Museum, and this is the first time that these productions are going to be there. But there's a strong historical element to that.
Well, so we actually did our first musical theater show there years ago. However, what you're alluding to, this is our first season.
Okay.
So this is the first time at Don't Miss a Beat where we're actually presenting a season of shows. So we started in May with our cabaret. We have Lion King now, and then at the end of the year, we're going to have Sister Act. And again, Sister Act and Lion King both will have Broadway performers. But to your point, Ritz is incredible. It is the Harlem of the South, and it's really amazing to have the kids and even the national performers there, like Philip and our directors and all of our Broadway folks, and they're walking around the museum saying, "Oh my God, like I thought New York and Harlem was actually the Harlem, but actually there's all these amazing juke joints and spots and folks and community that was here that also was connected to the outer world, whether it was Chicago or New York or whatever." So I think it's amazing because I feel that Don't Miss a Beat is reimagining the spirit of La Villa and the individuals that really put the city on the map. And I think these kids are putting the city on the map in a new way in the world of musical theater and beyond.
Well, it's going to be a great production. Lion King Jr., July 24th, July 26th. It's at the Ritz Theatre and Museum. You can get more information at
don'tmissabeat.org.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Isaiah, Mac, McKinley Taylor, Jay Ricca, and Ulysses Owens Jr. Appreciate it.
Honored. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We'll be right back.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you. Don't Miss a Beat presents The Lion King Jr., the conclusion of their 6-week Broadway Experience summer program. Performances will be held at the Ritz Theatre July 24th and 26th. Information at don'tmissabeat.org.
Listen to Anthology on 89.9 HD3 and let the music unlock your memories. All your favorite music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s are always on 89.9 HD3 Anthology.
The State Department just laid off more than 1,000 workers, including top intelligence analysts who are experts on Russia and Ukraine. Now massive layoffs are moving forward at the Department of Education, too. We look at how it's all unfolding inside these agencies and what it could mean for us all. Our series, If You Can Keep It, returns next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. The LOL Film Festival celebrates its 9th year this August 2nd and 3rd. Here to tell us about it is Monique Madrid. She is a producer, writer, editor, actress, director, and the creative mind behind the annual festival. Monique, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're delighted to have you back. You are a busy person, and this time of year, probably the busiest that you typically are. Tell us a little bit about this year's festival. It is going to look a little different. It's actually going to be here at WJCT Studios.
Yeah, it's here at WJCT Studios, jam-packed. We have a lot more filmmakers that are bringing some amazing comic films. Our two comedians, Jay Paw and Antoine Murphy, they are amazing and funny. And not only are they local, but they travel around the U.S., so I'm so grateful to have them in the building. And of course, Jen Weeks, our host, she's amazing and just been riding the wave the whole time. And she actually has a 1-hour special that just debuted on her website, jenweeks.com. So I wanted to plug her as well, too. It's a 1-hour special, so we're excited for that.
So for people who have not been to the festival, which is a regularly recognized, certainly Folio, I think, has recognized it as the best festival in town for a number of years. But what does it entail? Remind us, it's a mix of comic elements and film. There's some comedians present. There's then just kind of these great filmmakers.
Yeah. So it's a 2-day festival. And on day one, August 2nd, we have a live band that performs. Magic Radio is going to be the actual band this year. We have comedians. We always have 3 comedians. So we have our headliner, which is Jen, and then we have a featured comedian. We also have the filmmakers. And the reason for LOL is local touch. So what makes it special and different is that we're celebrating the local artists that are here in Jacksonville. We know that national acts come here, but sometimes we don't give enough love to the people who are doing just as hard work and are just as funny, just as talented here in Jacksonville. And so for anyone who's not an artist, come out. It's a great date night. It's a great brunch. We have local vendors. So we really are asking people to put local dollars into artists and businesses that are here local. And then on August 3rd, we have a award ceremony. We have different comedians, but we also still have our headliner. And it's just a fun time. We'll see who has the best film, and we'll celebrate. And we also want our artists to network and collaborate and get to know each other, because sometimes we are so stuck in our own little bubble that we don't realize that there are other people doing the same work, and we build our community even bigger when we expose each other to one another. So we're hoping for exposure to the arts as well.
And so who are the filmmakers? Are they people that are making something just specifically for LOL? Are they people who are making their own films already, and this is something that they endeavor to do just to kind of to try their hand at a comedic film? And what are the parameters of the submissions?
Oh, yeah. So we'll have a variety of people who are learning the craft and professionals. In regard to the parameters, they have to make a film in 10 minutes. It always has to be comedy, but they can have an underlying drama as well, too. And then in regard to them making the films, a lot of them do make the films specifically for LOL, but then they go on to put them in festivals as well. So it's kind of like a launching pad. And then for our festival in particular, I think a lot of the artists just wants to see, what my style is. Did the audience get it? So it's a really good chance for them to test out their material to a bigger audience that has that critical eye, because it's usually a lot of artists or a lot of filmmakers in the place, and they can get in real time, how great their film was. Should I tweak it? Did they get my jokes? Is my humor landing? And they go on to take their materials out into the world, into festivals around the U.S. and international. So it starts with LOL, but they take it and sail it somewhere else too. They shop it out for sure.
And you like to appreciate local talent, local artists, but you also try to cultivate younger, up and coming, possibly filmmakers, but people who are just kind of starting out and may have an interest.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of outreach.
Yeah. So just like your last group, which are an amazing group, Don't Miss a Beat, there are talented children, teens, college students in Jacksonville, or have gone on to SCAD, but they still have that local connection because they're from here. And so we really do try to reach out to them and let them know, no, come to our festival. You're talented. I want you to be exposed to people that are in the industry. We want them to see your work, because a lot of times these industry indie artists will say, hey, I really like that kid in that film. I want them to act in my film. Or I really want to just give a chance to have some of these directors, these young students that were directing, come on my set, shadow, work maybe even, and get that real hand experience. And I think it helps for their portfolio. And I think it also helps for, keeping that generation fulfilled with knowledge and information, because they're sharing it with one another. And I love that about our industry. They're really open to sharing their secrets on how they make the film great. And these kids are absorbing it. And if they're that talented now, I can only see what they're going to be like when they hit 30, 40,
Yeah. So the event is the LOL Film Festival. It is August 2nd and 3rd. It's here at WJCT Studios. Doors at 5, the event at 6. As you said, Magic Radio will be performing the first night. There's going to be food trucks. And so LOLJax.com is where people can get tickets?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. It is a delight to have you here, and thanks for all the work that you could do, Monique. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Monique Madrid, thanks for being here. That's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments or questions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org, or you can if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight. You can find our entire archive at WJCT.org or on your favorite podcast platform. Our executive producer is David Luckin. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett and directed by Brady Coram. Our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. And our interns are Jessica Lee, Lo Oliveri, and Camille Crawford. Join us tomorrow when we talk to First Coast News anchor Anthony Austin about answering the call to become a marrow donor. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Peoples Gas. Through its innovation and infrastructure investment, Peoples Gas has been committed to delivering safe and reliable natural gas for homes and businesses since 1895. More about Peoples Gas at the heart of Florida's energy at floridasenergy.com.